Charles D'Angelo is a young St. Louisan who has earned a national reputation as a fitness expert and life coach. His first book, Think and Grow Thin, brought him numerous clients, including Senator Claire McCaskill and actress Angela Bassett. He started with himself, turning a fat kid of 360 pounds into a muscular 200-pounder. He's proved he can subtract pounds, and now he's adding to his credentials with a new book. It's titled Inner Guru, The Guide to Mastering Your Health, Wealth, and Relationships from Inside Out. Obviously, it goes beyond advice on fitness and weight loss. Charles D'Angelo joins me in studio. So nice to see you again.
Don, it's great to see you. For those who aren't here, you should see Don in his tank top. I mean, these muscles are bulging. He's got a sweatband on.
we just lost a whole bunch of listeners, Charles.
You guys need to stream this live online.
Well, I wish we could. You know, it seems to me that what you're doing with this latest book, Charles, is focusing not on the outer image,
absolutely,
but the inside.
This book is for, if your life is going well, if your relationships are great, if your health is outstanding, if your financial house is in order, then you don't need my book, Inner Guru. If any of those things are out of alignment, then this book is for you. It's for the people that feel like nothing works. I always tell people, we all know diets don't work. You can go on a diet, stick to it for 2, 3, 4 days, and then you find you're back into that same pattern of doing the very things you know you shouldn't. And having lost my own 160 pounds and having helped thousands of others to lose hundreds and hundreds of pounds, I found that very rarely was it ever about the food. Most of us know how to lose weight, but we don't spend a lot of time on the why. So this book, of course, will walk you through how do you reclaim your health from your habits? How do you restore or maybe even create a relationship if you don't have one? But more importantly, it helps you understand your patterns. Why is it that you know what you're doing, you know what needs to happen, but you find it difficult to stick to it? And having grown up as an obese teen, having come from a family of modest means, I've been there. So I always tell people, if you want to take someone out of a place they're unhappy with, you've got to be willing to enter into it. And I certainly lived there for quite some time.
This seems more spiritual, though, than things we're familiar with from you in the past.
I think faith has a huge component to play in anyone's success. I always say this, that I don't think you can achieve success by faith alone, but I'm not sure you can achieve success without it.
Well, that's putting it right on the line there, isn't it? How do you employ that into a strategy?
I think that there's 3 components. First, you have to have a vision. You've got to ask yourself, what do I really want for myself? And that comes back to your belief system. When people come to me, what we're really working on is, what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about what's possible for you? So there's 4 components. When you're in your car listening to this, or if you're sitting in front of your computer, ask yourself, do you really believe it's possible for you to achieve the things you tell yourself that you want to achieve? Now, if it's 100 pounds you want to lose, or if it's giving up a substance, like I've had clients that have come to me that formerly have used heroin, or who have problems with alcohol, or who have been through 2, 3, 4 relationships and they've all ended in divorce. And a lot of it comes down to their belief. When you ask yourself, is it really possible? You've got to get in your head, your heart, and in your gut, all 3 places, that it really is. When a person comes to my office, they have me as an example, someone who's done it, someone who's not only financially healthy, healthy in the physical sense, healthy emotionally, healthy spiritually. They can see in my life and the lives of those I've coached that it's possible. But the next thing you have to ask yourself, and this takes a little bit of exploring, this is what I help people in the coaching relationship to do, is ask yourself, do I really want it? Now, at the surface, at the superficial level, you'd say, of course I want it. Of course I want to lose 100 pounds. People want the product. But what we find is often we're not willing to go through the process. To let go of a substance, let's say it's food, if you're using food in an abusive way, that means you're going to really have to confront some issues, because typically I found that when people are using things that are destructive, it's covering up an underlying issue. Maybe they don't feel they're worthy of having an outstanding relationship because when they were growing up, they didn't have a model for that. So once you ask yourself, do I really want it? You've got to take it to the next level. Do I really believe that I deserve it? Do I really believe that this is something I'm worthy of? Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself making 2 or 3 steps forward only to take 4 steps back. And to really free yourself, you have to lose the chains of your history. And that's what my book, Inner Guru, helps people to do, is lose those chains, disconnect from your past, recognize all we have is the here and now. If you're struggling with your weight, if you're struggling with a substance, here's the reality. As harsh as it might sound, I've been there. There is no history. The only thing that you have is a story you're telling yourself about what's happened. Now, I went through some traumatic, tragic things. I lost both of my parents, my mom at 51, my father at 54 years of age. I was bullied. I was abused. I was ridiculed. I grew up poor. All those things are true. Okay, and I could have used those things as an excuse from keeping myself from living the life I currently live. Instead, I use them as a reason. We all blame things. If you're willing to blame things for the way things aren't the way you want them to be, then you've got to also be willing to say, you know what? Because of those challenging adversities I faced, I'm a lot stronger for them. I'm a lot better for them. And if you can change your narrative, if you can look at your history in a more empowering way and ask yourself, how can I use this? What can I learn from it? What lessons can I take from this? You can invest those things into the here and now and compel yourself in an unbelievable way forward, make your life one that's legendary.
So the strategies that you have employed in the past for weight loss can be applied to almost anything.
They have applicability to food, of course, to substances, like I mentioned, alcohol, drugs, to money, to relationships. Look, the only reason your life isn't the way you want it right now is one reason. It's because of this story, this excuse, this narrative. You're telling yourself, well, I can't give it up because my dad was an alcoholic. I can't change because all the people in my family were overweight and unhappy. I can't be rich because I don't have an education. You know, it's never resources that are our problem. People in the green room were asking me, Charles, what was in you? What was in you that was so different? Because we see people that went through what you went through and they become criminals. They become people that are violent. They act out, right? And that could have been me. The thing that was different wasn't so much what was in me, but was in the choices I made. If you will change your choices, if you're sitting there and all you have is a radio in front of you, or all you have is your phone and you're streaming this, I'm here to tell you, you do not have to accept life as it is. If you will change the standard by which you live, if you will put yourself in proximity to those that have the things that you want for yourself, that can be through a library. Don, in your day, not to date you, but people had library cards. Okay, there are so many resources about how to raise your standards. There are people that have spent decades of their life to figure out how life works, and they put it into a book that can collapse all that time into a weekend. You can read one book that will change your entire future, and that's what I've done. I've made Inner Guru kind of a library of how can you reclaim every part of your life so that you don't have to settle. Because I wish I would have picked up this book when I was a kid. I sound like I'm promoting, but I'm just so passionate. I'm so passionate about what this can do. When I was a kid and I was driving around my little Honda Civic and I didn't have any friends and I felt like giving up on my life, I really wish that there would have been someone that would have spoke this type of promise into my life. And it's what compels me. I always tell people, if you connect with your purpose, and purpose is at the intersection of skill and passion, talent and passion. Ask yourself what you're really excited about. Ask yourself what you're really naturally good at. Just talking to you, Don, and I'm sure in all of your decades of doing interviews, time just flies by because it's something you're passionate about. And if you can ask yourself, where does my passion intersect with my skill set? You'll uncover your purpose. And when you have a strong purpose, something bigger than you, it will pull you through all sorts of adversity.
I'm still trying to get over the vision of Charles D'Angelo at 360 pounds in a Honda Civic.
I barely fit.
That must have been something to see. I look here, Charles, at the subtitle of the book, The Guide to Mastering Your Health. We understand that, particularly where you're coming from with your work with diet and nutrition. Wealth is one that caught my eye. Okay. I think a lot of folks out there would like to know what sort of strategy you have for becoming wealthier.
Yes, let me say this first. I'm not giving financial advice. You're not going to open this up and I'm going to give you my top stock picks. This is a book to instruct and to inspire, to help people recognize wealth is not only in terms of finances. Now, I do go into great detail of how to really balance your life, balance your checkbook, develop some very basic disciplines that with consistency will take your life in a whole new direction. If you'll start to make deposits into your life every day, we talked about the applicability of weight loss disciplines in other areas of life. If you want to have health, it's not a result of some one massive investment. It's a result of a lot of little investments day after day, week after week, month after month. I didn't lose 160 pounds in a month. Your daughter, Julia, didn't lose 140 in a month. She did it and I did it using the same philosophy. Small changes, day after day, week after week. If you want to change the level of wealth you have, first you have to define for yourself what that means. Now, wealth, we're all wealthy. Think about what we have in America. You don't hear about people trying to dig into other countries. But in America, we have people coming from all over that want to have the opportunities that we have. And it's available for all of us. If you ask yourself, what am I grateful for already that I have? You can build on that. But if you start from a place of scarcity of what you don't have, if you think more about your liabilities and your assets, you're starting out with the wrong philosophy. So start with what you do have. Get yourself in proximity of someone who is, if it's financial wealth you're looking for, who already has it. Because you'd be amazed at what you can learn just osmotically, just being in proximity to those that have it. It's like playing tennis. If you play tennis and you play tennis with a person who's worse than you, now at first it's kind of fun, but what happens is you lose your edge because it brings your game down. So you've got to raise your standards. And those are the types of disciplines, of philosophies, of ideas, of concepts that I put forth in Inner Guru, the guide to mastering your health, wealth, and relationships from the inside out.
What about relationships then?
I think that you have to ask yourself in all these different contexts. In relationships, if you want to have an ideal partner, it's possible for you, number one. Number two, who am I going to need to become to have or to attract into my life that type of partner? It's the same for health. If you want to have abs, if you want to fit into that size 4 dress, yes, it's possible for you. But here's the reality. You've got to ask yourself, what's the price I have to pay to have the things I want? So many people go to relationships with the idea of what they want to be able to get from that other person. That is not the nature of relationship. That's the nature of transaction. If you want to have a meaningful, empowering relationship, you've got to go to it with the idea of what you would invest. Now, the reason I didn't have some superstar girlfriend when I was 16 wasn't because I was 360 pounds. It was because the girl that I desired most deserved a lot better than how I was leading my life. And I do not mean by the number on the scale. There are plenty of people that are overweight that are very content with themselves. That's not what I'm saying. I wasn't taking care of myself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, how in the world can you expect that someone else that's living life at a higher level is going to want to spend a lot of time with you? It's not that you're a bad person. It's that that person deserves to have the security of knowing their partner's doing the best they can with what they got to bring some value to the relationship. In the prior segment, they were talking about how to negotiate a higher salary. As I was listening to that, a thought occurred to me. Ask yourself how you can become more valuable. When you begin to ask yourself, how can I bring more value to whatever it is you want to do, the question of what you get paid becomes, of course, obvious. You're going to be paid in proportion to the value you're bringing. In a relationship, you get out of it what you deposit into it. So if you want to have a relationship, you've got to ask yourself, who do I have to be to have the ideal person? And ask yourself, who is that person? How do I want them to look? What are their interests? Get real clear on what you want. And in the book, I talk about setting goals. You have to set goals with relationships just like you do with wealth, just like you do with health. And once you begin that process, as I've said, it generalizes. So it started for me, of course, of taking charge of my health. I mean, when you lose 160 pounds, in the book, we have people that had tried diet after diet after diet. We have one guy, Troy, who was almost 500 pounds when he came to see me. He couldn't even make it across a room without getting out of breath. He had tried everything, and he lost almost 300 pounds. And you have a picture of him bicycling in the mountains now, okay? And these are people that it wasn't some magical diet. It was a shift in how they were thinking, a shift in how they were living, and the regular, consistent practices that I put forth in the book.
What was it that eureka moment, the epiphany, when you realized that the concept that you had for weight loss could be applied to so many other parts of life?
It was people coming to me, having lost the weight that I lost and having seen me help so many other people, people were coming to me and saying, Charles, you know, after you helped me lose this much weight, I found that being disciplined, I'm doing a lot more with my wife or my husband. I'm doing more around the house. And they started to set new goals, because when you physically transform yourself, when you take something that's imagined, something that, you know, your imagination comes up with, and you bring it down into the real, you're unstoppable. So the first thing you have to do is become kind of a Steve Jobs, right? The iPhone was something that was in the ether. It was always there, but only he was able to bring that down into the real. And when you bring something that's imagined into the real, it creates this sense of excitement. And that's what happened for me. When I was 17, 18 years old and I lost that weight, it was like God pulled back the veil on my life. And I could barely sleep. I mean, those first few years, I got so thin because I was just working relentlessly. Why? Because I loved it. I still do, but I've learned some moderation. I'm engaged now. My fiancée, Crystal, who's God's greatest blessing in my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, she's unbelievable. And I truly believe that she only came into my life when I was really at the place that I deserved her, because I certainly wasn't willing to give all that I give to her at earlier stage of my life. So you've got to accept that everything is working together in your life. If you see life as a series of connections rather than a series of accidents and things that just happen to bump into one another, I'll tell you, it gives you a tremendous sense of purpose and direction. And I'm not telling you have to believe it. I'm just telling you, why not try it? You can always go back to what you did believe.
Because weight loss is such a big deal in this country, and people are thinking...
Two-thirds of adults, 68.8% of American adults are either overweight or obese. Two-thirds.
And so many of them are kids these days.
Oh, my gosh,
too.
yes. And look at the childhood obesity epidemic. My friend President Clinton, of course, the Clinton Global Initiative has done a lot to help correct that. However, we can't keep up with it fast enough. I mean, every day, more and more people.
That's quite a name drop, by the way, my friend
thank you.
President Clinton.
Well, President Clinton did endorse the first book. You interviewed me on that, and so I was very fortunate with that.
In the time we have left, and of course we want to promote the book, but I think a lot of people, because they are interested in weight loss in this country, for the numbers indicate. Tell us very quickly your story. How did you lose that 160 pounds?
The very same way that I've been talking about the last few minutes. First, I set a clear goal for myself. So if you're at the place where you're fed up, you've got to get real with your pain. I always tell people change happens when pain becomes greater than fear. When the pain you're in is greater than the fear you have of changing something, you will change. So I got to the place where nothing fit. The idea of fitting that Honda Civic you referenced was a joke. I could barely get in and out of it. Honda Civics sit pretty low, as you know. So that whole car, when I would get out of it, the supports, whatever those things are, the things that keep
shock absorbers.
The shock absorbers. Yeah, it was like no offense, but my God, it was like an animal getting out of that car. The whole thing would come up. I was almost 400 pounds, and so I'm not at all ashamed of that. I say that so that people that are in that circumstance can understand I've been there, and I decided I wasn't going to live that way anymore. I then decided, what's a fundamental way to change? Well, diets don't work. Right? We see people that lose 100 pounds only regain it. So I did have to understand the how. What I need to eat, what I need to do with exercise. But you can find that anywhere. There's a gym on every corner. There's dietitians, there's nutritionists, there's books. At that time, the internet was something new, so I could find the information. But I had to really work on my mindset and my own personal confidence to help stay consistent with that. And that's what I've worked with people on doing these last now almost 2 decades.
Well, only a little over a minute left, but how do you get a Claire McCaskill, for instance, to follow your system, which she has done?
I think that most people, any public official, any person that's famous or well-known, the reason that they have come to see me is because my message resonates. It's one of personal responsibility. It's that if you have a vision, there's nothing that can stop you but you. If you're willing to change your choices, and if someone else has done it, then you too can do it, if you're willing to do the things those people have done. So if you're sitting there and you're looking at Senator McCaskill, who had lost the weight, or you hear what Tony Robbins says about my program, or any of those people, I'm here to tell you it's not because I'm just brilliant. I'm no superhero. I'm a person saying with the right strategy, with vision, with faith, you can achieve anything.
And discipline.
Discipline, I would say, is part of the strategy. Discipline is built through consistency. So like any muscle, people say, I have no discipline, I have no willpower. Bull. You do have it, you just haven't worked it for a while. So if you'll start making small changes, you can let those, like a snowball effect, build up until they have so much momentum they carry over.
Well, folks can find a lot more about this philosophy of yours, Charles D'Angelo, and the Inner Guru, the Guide to Mastering Your Health, Wealth, and Relationships from the Inside Out. That's quite a title.
And this Saturday, I'll be at the Barnes & Noble.
I was just going to mention that. You're signing copies of the book this Saturday at noon at the Barnes & Noble in the West County Mall, and at 3 o'clock at the Barnes & Noble in Ladue. You're a busy guy.
You've got it.
Writing books, staying
Not
in
as
shape.
busy as St. Louis's Larry King, our own Don Marsh,
You just
ladies and
mentioned
gentlemen.
Larry King because he wrote the forward to your book. Something else to look forward to. Charles D'Angelo, thank you.
My friend, it's always great to see you.
Continued success. Archive versions of past St. Louis On the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org/stlonair. St. Louis On the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio 90.7 KWMU. Thank you for listening. I'm Don Marsh.